Hello gamers and welcome to another Zenless video. You know what? I'm gonna keep going. Today we're gonna talk about the new disc drops. So we get some new disc drives coming up in the next update of 1.2 for Zenless 0, and they look very, very impressive. However, they're going to be limited, kind of like most of our current drive disc sets, and so I'm gonna talk about that, right? As it's gonna be. Just to get off right at the bat, who are you gonna farm this for? It's primarily the new characters. Not a lot of older characters get use out of it. However, you can still make use of at least the two-piece for some of these characters. But there are a few characters that I think that you currently have that might replace sets on. It's purely going to be in terms of optimizing setups and or if you want an extra like option for that character, that's going to work pretty well, right? So let's start off with the first one being Photo Punk. This is going to be the main one that people are farming this set for, and it's because it's for Caesar. So what this set does is the two-piece is 15% shield effect. This is basically giving you 15% to your shields, which is going to be pretty nice because for a really good Seth build, you can get up to like 3k shields at like, I think that's the cap actually. This is going to allow you to, I believe, get more than that, right? Don't quote me on that because I'll be honest, this is a new effect into the game, so I don't actually know how it's going to affect that. It might just increase the base and it still get capped out. But from my understanding, it's just going to give you, increased overall shield. So take that with a grain of salt. This is going to matter for a character like Caesar because obviously if you've looked at her kit, and again I'll talk about that in a follow-up video, or not follow-up video, but a video after this, where she doesn't have that same restriction as like Seth does. She's just giving you pure shields, right? And so with her, this is obviously going to increase her shielding capability, which is going to increase her survival. It's going to be really good for a lot of players who are wanting Caesar to pull for the survival value. But she's also doing like 50 other things, so there's more than enough reason to pull her there. Additionally, the 4-piece is the main reason why this set is so insane for basically everybody in the game, and it might even replace some of your current builds, is that whenever any squad member triggers a defensive assist or evasive assist, right? So that's you press spacebar or you press the swap button whenever the Shing attack happens, right? If you do that to use an assist point, you're going to proc this set. And what it does is all squad members deal 15% increased damage for 10 seconds. That's passives of the same type do not stack. This is just like its, other sets, the Swinging Jazz set, the one that gives energy recharge whenever you proc a chain attack or ultimate, you 50% damage. So they're both doing the same thing, but here's the thing. This will proc off with defensive invasive assist. This is really good for a lot of characters like Caesar and or any other like defense character or any team where you probably wouldn't be running Swinging Jazz, or you can even run them together. Now, the reason why it says the effects at the same time do not stack, it's going to be this same effect, right? So these are two separate effects. So these two should stack, right? I'm saying should, because there's no reason they shouldn't, right? But the reason why it's so good is that you're now going to have two like support sets now in the game, which means you can now have two characters run a support set that's going to help out your main DPS. And this is a really good effect that, of course, can be used on most characters in the game. That being said, the 2-piece is obviously very useless for like the most of the game because they're not giving shields. But the 4-piece is what's good because you'll be able to stack it with somebody else in your team using Swinging Jazz. Now in this case of Seth, right, depending on how you run him on the team and who your third member is, a lot of times it's Rena or Lucy, you don't run Swinging Jazz, right? You're going to be running just the 2-piece Swinging Jazz and then maybe like 4-piece stun, or like 2-piece anomaly, 2-piece stun, or like 2-piece attack. Like you're going to be running a mixed set on Seth, right? Are going to be running a 4-piece like the stun set, right? It's something along those lines. This is now going to give Seth another option to run alongside your Lucy, or in this case, where I'm mainly going with alongside your Caesar, to run inside of that team. Or of course, Caesar can run this set, however it may be. But this is going to give you a very good option for a lot of characters to replace their current sets. If you're like, hey, I don't really think I need the impact percent for my stunner, I'm going to run them on the set that's going to potentially give me a damage boost whenever I do an evasive or, defensive sets, right? Or, hey, it's a support like Sakaku, where it's like, oh, I'm running double support, or on my stunner, I've got the Swinging Jazz set. Like, I can just run this, right? So, like, it's going to give you options. Granted, I wouldn't run it on those characters like Sakaku. I was just giving it as an example. But this is sort of give you the idea of, like, this is a set that's going to be really good. It's going to be pretty universal. And the fact that you're going to allow you to get another 15% damage bonus for your team. So that's going to be very, very powerful. And specifically, the characters I do think this is viable on are characters like Seth, Caesar, and Finn. The reason for that is not because of the shield percent, it's actually because they don't have many other options they're running, right? Typically with these characters, you're either going to be running something to boost their stats, like for Ben's case, it's going to be Soul Rock from the defense. For Seth's case, it's going to be Hormone Punk. And then you'll probably be running the 4-piece of the Shocker Disco just to get their days and impact up, right? Now with Caesar, 100% you're going to want to run the 2-piece with this, specifically on her, because she is going to be a stunner primarily. Although, don't take that as like gospel, okay? She's a hybrid like stun support character. She's covering every role because she's insane. But this is one of the sets that you're going to be eyeballing for Caesar, and so be able to run this on top of the fact that you're running 4-piece of this is what most people will probably end up doing. Granted, there's also arguments to be made for energy recharge, but that's here nor there. It's going to, again, the whole point of this says that's giving you an extra option, and I think it's going to work best on these characters because either the 4-piece sets aren't really that impactful, or this is just going to be an option to add to the team, right? Because a lot of people will run Kaleda as a stunner. Ben is just there for additional damage and follow-ups. And then Seth, again, he's either running a mix set, or you're running like Puffer, like full Freedom Blues with like Rena to try to get, shock disorder happen. Like, again, there's a lot you can do with these characters, but I think it's going to work best on these characters. And then again, it's just going to depend on your setup. I don't see a lot of use on it on a lot of other characters, to be honest with you. It's going to be entirely dependent on how often you actually proc defensive assist and evasive assist, right? That's going to be like, again, this is not as consistent as getting chain attacks or ultimates, because every time you stun the enemy, you're going to proc a chain attack, so this is always going to pop off. This one is going to be, when you do an assist, which this will probably happen like you assist into a chain attack, right? So this is a case where that would activate, right? So again, I'm probably talking way too much about this set in particular, and the other set's gonna be more appealing for people, but this is one that is gonna provide some decent value across the game. And I know it doesn't look like it, but it's primarily because we have a small roster, but there are gonna be some niche cases where you can use it in replace of an old set, right, for these characters to get an additional damage bonus. Right? Whether or not it's gonna be optimal, that's gonna be up to the player, because not everybody's gonna be able to make full use of this, and or they don't play into it, so it's not really doing anything for them. But I just thought I'd yap about that set in particular because I do think it's actually going to be something that a lot of people will be able to make use of. That being said, though, overall, it's not the best domain to farm. The Ether plus Energy Regen one is like way better for a lot of people right now. But again, that's debatable because not everybody has Yuan. So that's really here nor there. But I just thought I'd mention that. Now for the set that a lot of people are going to care about more because they're either swimming for Bernice or they've got characters like Grace, the Chaos Jazz set. The Chaos Jazz set is a very interesting set, is that it has the same 2-piece bonus as our Freedom Blue set, which is going to be anomaly proficiency. So this will now allow you to run 2 pieces that are, or 2 sets with 30 anomaly proficiency. This is good for your overall anomaly damage. At the same time, would you want to run this over what the current characters are running? Like currently Jane Doe and Piper primarily run either 4-piece Freedom Blues or Fanged Metal 4-piece, right? And so with Jane specifically and Piper, these two, they don't need this because it's already on Freedom Blues, right? So they're either running this, and so if you run Freedom Blues, most of the time you're going to be running the physical damage bonus. Now that being said, I could do the math to see which is going to be better. I think there's a chance that the 30% anomaly proficiency is going to be better than 10% physical damage bonus, but I have to double check on that to be honest with you. And anyway, moving on with what I was saying, is that the 30% here, or not 30%, the plus 30 to anomaly proficiency will be decent for a couple of characters, and it's primarily going to be giving Grace another option, because right now what Grace is, a lot of Grace players are running is going to be the 4-piece Thunder Metal. Now this is primarily on the Shock team. Outside of that team, Grace doesn't have the best options. It's primarily going to be just Freedom Blues for her specifically, or you just do raw attack. So this set being that I haven't got to the 4-piece yet, the 2-piece alone is giving her another option, as now she can run Freedom Blues plus another 30% anomaly proficiency, kind of like what I was saying with Jane Doe and Piper. It's going to be the same thing, right? So I don't know which one's going to be necessarily better overall, but this is going to give you another option. As for the actual 4-piece effect, it's going to be fire damage and electric damage are increased by 15% when off field. And the damage caused by EX special attacks and assist attacks are increased by 20%. When this when the character switches back to the field, this buff continues for 5 seconds. The effect can be triggered once every 7.5 seconds. So the reason why this is built like this is because Bernice is going to be a primarily off-field character who's going to come in for some quick damage, and she's going to be doing off-field attacks with her effect. As well as you saw in the live streams that she, with her ultimate, right, allows her to extend her actual attack. by sitting up in the air and just shooting flames on enemies. So there's a reason why the set is made like this, but the fact that there's also electric in here, it gives to me that there's going to be a future electric anomaly character that's probably going to be off field, that's going to mess up special attacks and or assist attacks, just like Bernice. And so this is probably going to be a character that ideally is going to replace what Grace does and or be an option additive to the anomaly teams, right, with Grace. So we'll see what happens there. But as for this 4-piece, it is going to be a decent option for Grace, assuming you keep your uptime of like the full effect. That being said, though, still 30 plus 30 proficiency and then 15% damage is still a really good bonus, as it's kind of like you're still running the 2-piece of this, but a little bit better. And this will allow it to work on Jane Doe teams, so you won't have any like loss of the attack here. Granted, you can definitely still argue that the Freedom Blues reducing the shock application needed is better, but that's really here nor there. It's going to depend on your actual team setup. But regardless, even if you don't get full uptime, you're still getting a pretty solid 2 and 4-piece effect for Grace specifically, and so this is going to be really good for her. This can also be made to be used on a couple other characters if you're really trying to get funny, but I wouldn't really suggest putting it on like Seth or Rena. It's just not like the way to do it. Those are characters that really prefer like the energy recharge and other bonuses like pin ratio for Rena. So it's not like you wouldn't get used there, but this set clearly is mainly for Bernice, and that's why I would say you're going to get used to the 4-piece on probably these two. Again, Grace is going to be finicky still, but it's honestly arguably better than what her other options are. You just got to play into it to make sure you get full uptime of the, you know, remaining effect, right? And obviously it's the best slot for Bernice, right? So yeah, that's basically the video. There's not much to talk about. These sets aren't drastically changing anything, right? The Proto Punk I do think is going to be the most interesting one, ideally just for overall damage, because this is the, you know, second support set that we're getting, and it's obviously going to be really good for Caesar as well. It's shield based and, you know, defensive based. Like obviously they made it for the shield character. Like, come on, if you looked at her kit, you also know like this is going to be one of your better options to run on her. And then of course the other piece, it's more niche, but there's future potential, you know, like kits that are going to make use of this a lot. And right now, it's going to be really good for our anomaly characters that are not Jane Doe specifically. Jane and Piper, they really prefer the rate buildup and or the damage percent. So yeah, we'll see. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitch. Tell me your thoughts down below, right? Whether you think these sets are good or not, all that good stuff. Of course, look forward to the future videos about Caesar and Bernice. And I'll see you guys in the next one because, well, these sets are cool, but there's a lot more interesting things around the corner, specifically Caesar.